Picture this. I'm standing at a party. The lights are warm. Music is playing softly in the background, and people are laughing in small groups. Someone approaches me, smiles, and says, "Hi, how are you?" And suddenly my brain freezes. I smile back awkwardly, holding my drink a little too tightly, but inside, it feels like I'm trapped in slow motion. That silence stretches, and the longer it does, the louder my mind screams, "Say something, anything," but nothing comes out. Has this ever happened to you? For years, I believed this meant I was boring, that I had nothing interesting to say. But here's the twist I wish I'd learned earlier. The problem wasn't that I had nothing to say. The problem was that I had too much to say, and my brain filtered out everything before it ever reached my mouth. Inside my head, there's a constant little voice. "No, that's weird. They won't care about that. That's too random." And by the time that voice finishes, judging the conversation window is already closed. That's why I felt stuck. Not because my mind was empty, but because it was overflowing. And the filter inside me was stealing every word. The day I realized that everything about conversations started to shift. And I want to share with you the exact tools that helped me flip the script. The 5-second rule. The first breakthrough was something so simple, I almost didn't believe it. I call it the 5-second rule. Here's how it works. When someone says something, you give yourself exactly 5 seconds to respond. And not with the second thought, not with the polished version, but with the very first thought that comes to mind. Let me tell you a story. A friend once told me I just bought a new car. Immediately, 2 thoughts popped up in my head. First, I hope he didn't get scammed. My cousin had a terrible experience at a dealership. Second, I wonder if he got a good deal. The old me would have hesitated. I'd weigh both options, overthink, and end up saying nothing. But this time, I chose one and spoke within 5 seconds. And it was amazing. We ended up talking about negotiation tactics, family stories, even the psychology of buying. It turned out my messy first thought was actually the key to something real. That's when I realized your first instinct is often more authentic, more human, and more interesting than the perfect sentence you never say. So here's a challenge for you. Next time you're in a conversation, start the 5-second timer in your mind. Say the first thing that pops up. Don't overthink it. Trust it. Strategic ignorance. But speaking up is only one part of the puzzle. The second piece I learned is this. The best conversationalists aren't the smartest people in the room. They're the ones who ask the best questions. And the secret to that, I call it strategic ignorance. It means intentionally asking simple, even naive questions, not because you're clueless, but because you're curious. I'll give you an example. I once met a graphic designer at a networking event. I could have bragged about my knowledge of Photoshop or Illustrator, but instead I simply asked, "What's a typical day like for you?" Her eyes lit up. She told me stories about strange clients, impossible deadlines, and her weirdest project ever. I was hooked. And all because I chose not to show off what I knew, but to lean into what I didn't. It reminded me of talk show hosts. They interview celebrities, authors, experts, people way more accomplished than most of us will ever meet. And what do they ask? The kind of questions a curious 12-year-old would ask. How does that work? What's that like? Has anything crazy ever happened? And that's the magic. When you show you want to learn instead of trying to prove yourself, people open up. They feel valued. They feel like experts in their own lives. The spiderweb of threads. Then I discovered something that completely changed the way I listen. Every story someone tells you isn't just one topic. It's a spiderweb filled with multiple threads. Here's what I mean. Someone once told me I was supposed to meet my friend Sarah for brunch yesterday, but she canceled last minute because her dog got sick. So I ended up trying that new Korean place alone. Most people would grab one thread. Oh no, is the dog okay? But look at all the others. The friendship with Sarah. The feelings about eating alone. Korean food experiences. Weekend routines. Pet ownership. Restaurant adventures. So instead of picking just one, I tried something different. I said, wow, sick dog drama and solo Korean food discovery? That's quite a plot twist for a Sunday. How was the restaurant? And more importantly, is the dog all right? The person laughed, relaxed, and suddenly we had endless directions to go. That's when it clicked. Being a great conversationalist isn't about waiting for your turn to talk. It's about showing you've really heard the whole story. The curiosity cascade. But my favorite tool of all is what I call the curiosity cascade. This is where small talk transforms into real talk. Imagine someone tells you, I just got back from a work conference in Denver. Here's how most people respond. Oh, cool. How was it? And then they jump into their own story. Instead, here's how a curiosity cascade works. Level 1. How was the conference? Level 2. What was the most surprising thing you learned? Level 3. How do you plan to use that in your projects? Level 4. Do you think your company will actually implement it, or will it just disappear? In just a few questions, you move from surface-level chatter to deep insights about work culture, hopes, and frustrations. That's the magic of cascading curiosity. It turns conversations into journeys. The emergency kit. Now let's be real. Even with all this, sometimes I still go blank. It happens to everyone, even comedians and professional speakers. That's why I carry a conversation emergency kit, 5 lifelines that never fail. 1 observation. Comment on the environment. This playlist fits perfectly with the weather. 2. The obvious question. You seem like someone who has strong opinions about coffee. 3. Hypothetical. If you won $50,000 tomorrow, not life-changing money, but still, what would you do? 4. Callback. Earlier, you mentioned your sister's business. How did she even start that? 5. Genuine compliment. You really light up when you talk about teaching. What got you into it? Keep 2 or 3 of these ready, and you'll never fear silence again. How to exit gracefully. But here's something nobody teaches: how to end conversations without making it weird. The formula is simple. Appreciation, reason, bridge. Appreciation. This has been so interesting. I had no idea marketing psychology was this complex. Reason. I should probably grab a coffee before they close. Bridge. I'd love to hear how your project turns out. Can we connect on LinkedIn? Notice what happens. No one feels rejected. The conversation doesn't die. It leaves the door open. And the last impression you make is one of warmth, not awkwardness. The bottom line. So here's what I've learned. Conversation isn't about being the most interesting person in the room. They're about being the most interested. It's about curiosity. It's about listening. It's about making space for real human connection, something we all crave more than ever in this digital disconnected world. If you've ever stood frozen at a party like I did, try just one of these techniques today. The 5-second rule, strategic ignorance, the spiderweb of threads, the curiosity cascade, the emergency kit, or the graceful exit. Pick one. Try it. And watch how your conversations come alive. Because here's the truth. It's not about saying the perfect thing. It's about daring to say something real.